You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 81 of East Central Indiana's favorite podcast. I'm Jeremiah Morrill, and I'm joined by co-host Mr. Dakota Davis.
Today's episode is going to be featuring a candidate for District 6 Congress, Jeannine Lee Lake. Jeannine, am I saying that correctly?
Yes, you are.
Right.
Jeannine, Lucretia, Lois, Lee Lake.
Okay. Well,
there's 4 names in there.
I'll stick with Lee Lake.
That'll work.
Once again, she's running for District 6 Congress in the state of Indiana. She's running against Republican Greg Pence, the vice president's brother, and Libertarian Tom Ferkinhoff. We're going to be asking you all kinds of questions today about your platform, the things that matter to you, and what you want to bring with you to Washington, D.C.
So this show is about our lives in rural Indiana, and as always, we promise our episodes are going to be a fun and an easy listen. Some of the people in the room may or may not be consuming some sort of beverage that you have to be 21 and older to have, because we're free Americans. And
that's right.
But it makes the show fun.
Yes, it does.
I have fun every week.
I'm 21 times 2 plus what?
Yeah.
7?
Yeah.
We weren't going to say anything.
We started doing this show, and Dakota was 21 plus 0. He was right there.
I was young.
You were 21, though, at the time, right? Just barely?
Just barely.
Yeah, like by a month or 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Barely.
He's just grown up on the air. When he started, he thought Bud Light was trendy.
Yeah, that's right.
Now it's a little more.
Yep.
So we got some people to thank.
That's right. We, of course, every week have to thank the people who support us on Patreon. You keep the lights on in our brand new studio, and you help us replace equipment when it fails, just like our headphone amp just did before we started this episode.
Nice.
So if you want to join the Patreon group, then you can go over to patreon.com/Boss Hog of Liberty. Sign up. You're joining a great group of people who support us. You get all kinds of extra bonus content, access to a Facebook group, and all kinds of really cool things.
You get Dakota's extra show with Audrey.
Yeah, that hasn't happened this week.
Tinfoil time. You guys are trying to move right in election season when we're doing about 8 shows this month, and you said, you know what would be a good thing? I'm going to sell my house and move.
That's right. It
Nice.
seemed like the perfect time.
Yeah, perfect. And we moved the studio too, so because we had to move out of your house.
That's right. And then, of course, we have our sponsor to thank, which is Big Bounce in Newcastle, Indiana. Big Bounce Inflatables is on Main Street, and they are sponsoring us today for the show. It is a family-run business. Big Bounce prides itself on their premium ice cream, their friendly staff, and their competitive prices. They offer a safe environment for kids and a fun place for parties and gatherings.
They offer birthday parties, corporate parties, rentals, and fun for all ages and great price points. You can go on to their website, or you can call them up, and you can order a Big Bounce house. So
Nice.
when we have the grand opening for the Davis residence down there in Spiceland,
Yeah,
I think we need to have a Big Bounce inflatable.
that sounds great. I got the perfect spot for it.
And then we've been trying to marry off Chase Payton so we could have a bachelor party down in Nashville like you and I did.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to think maybe we just need to have a big party at Big Bounce for Chase. And they've got 200 inflatables down there. We can hang out, and I'm sure we could have a hell of a time.
Yeah, we could do great with 200 inflatables. Could you imagine the bachelor party fun that could happen there? So make your Make your reservation now at bigbouncefun.com, or you can call 765-325-JUMP. All right. I'm ready to
Operators
start.
are standing by.
All right, I'm ready to start grilling Miss Lake over here with some tough questions.
So this other guy, he's not chopped liver.
Right.
you sure?
I'm just
Over
in the
there?
corner. It's fine.
Over
It's fine.
here on the other side, we do have elected
I'm
official.
used to it.
He's got is that My Little Pony cup you're
Yes,
drinking out of?
was talking with Elle before I left, and Dakota Elle says hi. I'm supposed to tell you that.
Did you get her Weenie World Sunday?
I did not, and we stopped at a gas station for a beverage. We were talking about a message I could send her. I said, I'll just drink my coffee out of the My Little Pony mug tonight.
There you go. So we have Erin Dickon, Newcastle City Councilman. a year from facing the voters for his reelection. So he's out here doing a good PR campaign, trying to get on the good side of the voters.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm trying to wait till I actually declare, what I would be running for. So,
there's some doubt
trying
there. What I could be running for.
Just wait and be official.
Okay, all right. Is your campaign account still open? Are you filing? You doing the filings?
No, I think I closed everything out actually. And I'll just reopen it.
Yeah. You don't want to say you're doing anything too soon, or else you end up in front of the election board.
Exactly.
Lord knows I've been fined before. It's easy to do. The Courier this week. There was some fake news from Travis Wyke about my campaign.
Yeah, there was.
I read
saw that,
and I tried to correct it. They said that my little handouts may not be correct because they said that they were paid for. They didn't say they were authorized by. They said they're paid for by my campaign committee, which is all you have to do.
I can tell you, I designed those
if you did
handouts.
It yourself.
I designed the handouts. I know they're right, Travis.
We checked the law. Yeah.
No such thing as bad publicity now, though.
Man, it was edgy there for a minute. I woke up and I read that and I went, man, darts are flying this morning. 6 a.m. to wake up to the newspaper and drove through the mud.
Yeah.
We did nothing wrong. I can't swear about anybody else that might have done something wrong, but we did. Our campaign was okay. Anyway, so let's learn about Mrs. Lake, Jeannine Lee Lake. She won the 97-way primary this May, and we tried to work a number of the candidates on, and we connected with you. I think we tried to talk to you election night after your big win, but we didn't have you through in the primary series. So, who are you, and what are you doing here? How'd we get to this point?
Right. Well, I did have about 97 opponents, whittled down to 5. We had 5 on the Democrat side, and I think maybe about 6 or so on the other Republican side. And then, of course, Tom Ferkinhoff, who's a friend who has become a wonderful friend of ours during this process. We show up at the same places a lot, and we have a lot of fun. I decided in 2017 to run for U.S. Congress. I got in July 4th of 2017 is when I announced Independence Day is my favorite holiday. And I've been, dressing up in red, white, and blue, for a long time. I'm 49 years old, and I just, I'd actually talked about becoming interested in politics for several years now. But I didn't really take it seriously. It was always one of those, I'll get there, maybe when I'm 55 or, later. And, I just, after Donald Trump won in 2016, I just felt like there were, and before then too, not just during that time, but there was just so much rhetoric and negativity kind of in the air. And, you kept thinking, okay, well, maybe in January of 2017, people will calm down. We'll all kind of, shake things a bit and then, settle down. And we'll come together. And it just seems like it just kept getting worse. And the rhetoric got hotter on the left and the right. And it just got crazy. And since, I'm a person of faith, and I've always tried to, be a person that would unite people and bring people together and, try to bring, sensible adults in the room, as they say. That's kind of what we do as pastors and ministers. My husband's an associate pastor at Greater Grace. My dad's a pastor. He's been a pastor for 51 years. I've got 2 grandfathers that are also pastors and ministers, and I'm not sure about the great people, the great grandfathers. But so and then literally, since I have 12 brothers and 2 sisters, I have 2 of my sisters are ordained ministers, and then I have 6 brothers that are also ordained ministers. So, we're just always trying to find the good and build people up and all this stuff. And so, that was I didn't like the way it sounded, and since I'm not a preacher, I thought, you know what, we'll try to see if we can make a difference this way.
So this is your first foray into politics.
Yes, it is. So, I never even won school council or anything like that. I never even tried to put the big posters up and you go with the crayons and all that stuff. For school treasurer. No, I've never actually. The May primary was my first official winning at any.
So you're 1-0.
I'm 1-0, dude.
Saving your momentum.
All right.
So
we saved the best for after 50.
that you picked like the biggest district in the state of Indiana.
my gosh.
You got some stories from the road as you've been traveling around. You're from Muncie, so you're starting from the northernmost part of the thing, and you're going all the way to the river. You were in Oldenburg. We were talking about that before we went on the air, which is down in the Batesville area. Is that Decatur County or maybe somewhere in that range?
Franklin County,
Franklin
I
County.
believe.
Okay,
Franklin
yeah.
County, Brookville, Batesville, right kind of near that area. And I was just down there actually today. It was the first time I was able to go down to visit the Sisters of St. Francis, and that was really exciting. They're a politically active group of nuns and people that are retired nuns, and they live in this big facility, and it's really cool. It's very historic building. And so, we had a lot of fun down there today. I also went to Indianapolis to meet with some unions there, and I had something. Also, this is my probably third stop, and then I'm going to try to pass out some signs on the way home.
Nice.
So it's been kind of crazy, but the district is absolutely huge. 19 counties. I think I just now went over the $100,000 miles on my car. So. Yeah, it's
Wow.
been
In the
crazy.
campaign, you've done 100,000 miles already?
In 16 months, yes.
I believe it. I remember whenever we were talking to Jonathan Lamb during the primaries, and he had been putting mile after mile on his truck, and I forget, he had a monetary amount of money that he had spent on gas, and it just totally blew all of us away.
Right. We don't have a lot of money that comes into this campaign because we're Democrats. But, it's amazing how much $100 donation will buy two tanks of gas. And that's like almost 1,000 miles. That's a lot of miles, highway miles. And so, when I get that tank filled up, it's like 467 or something that pops up there. And we just drive it till it's empty, and then get it back again.
See, look at that. We're already establishing things that we have in common as Democrats and Libertarians. Is that neither one of our campaigns usually generate a lot of money,
Right.
especially in this area.
Right.
So,
And I hate asking for people for money. I'd rather ask them for votes because, dollars can't vote, but people can.
So we'll make it easy on you. How do they make a donation today if they're interested?
Oh, you're very nice. To Jeannine Lake for Congress. It's the longest name. I don't know how my campaign team, Lori Morgan's here. She's our campaign manager, but it was decided kind of before she got here. She's not taking responsibility, but it is Jeannine Lee Lake for Congress.com. And also have a official political Facebook page, Jeannine Lee Lake for Indiana. They can go there. Or P.O. Box 2833, Muncie, Indiana 47307. Yes, we are still taking donations.
Of course, absolutely.
So we were talking about how it's hard for you to raise money in this area as a Democrat. Same with us for Libertarians. But as you've been driving around and you've been talking to people, what has been the reaction from the general public as you've tried spreading your message?
With regards to the campaign?
Yeah, how have you been received?
Well, you know what? It's really funny because when I first started, I just, since I've never run, it's all brand new. I really didn't know exactly, what the response would be. This is a 19-county district, but it's also a district that's like about 94% Caucasian. And as a person of color, an African-American woman, there's some places that I've been to, obviously, maybe some of the larger cities, but I hadn't been to some of the smaller cities. And, although my family is full of, we're kind of like the Rainbow Coalition. We have, literally, I've got blacks, whites, Japanese, Native American. We have a big rainbow. My stepmother's white, little lady. And then I have a stepsister as well. And so, I kind of, it's not like I'm not used to being around a lot of different races and things like that, but I think a lot of these people weren't used to seeing, a person of color. And so that was the one thing that, I had to kind of get over my inhibitions, and I felt like they had as well. Now that I've been several times to Ripley County and Versailles and all those places, I mean, literally, when I say this, they really, I've fallen in love with my constituents, and it's been the most beautiful kind of process that I could have never imagined I'm the JJ speaker at a lot of different places. We've been
JJ is the Jefferson Jackson dinner, right?
There you go.
Yeah, I'm up on
Good
my
looking.
Democrats, Aaron. I've yet to take him up on his invitation, but I'm to attend one of these.
This is the year, Jeremiah.
You're always welcome. I promise. As long when I'm the speaker, you're always welcome to come.
We'll seat
Although
you next to the door.
now they call it the New Deal sometimes. But yeah, so I mean, it's been a process, and I believe that the biggest thing that I've learned is that people love the idea of us bringing people together to the table on issues that typically are hot button issues, whether it's talking about some of the cultural issues like guns or abortion, things like that. That typically people are just, this is what this
polarizing.
is what
You
very
recoil and
polarizing.
you go to your tribe and we can't talk, right?
Right. And I don't like that because I'm a person that I like to bring things to the table, and I don't mind controversial issues, but done with respect. And I just think I think most people don't mind coming there as long as they can feel that you're not going to disrespect them.
So, speaking to the voters, what's the number one thing that's on their mind, and what is the number one thing that you usually bring up?
Well, outside of just the part that I think which I can be a unifier, some people call me the unifying candidate, the uniter, as it were. Outside of that, healthcare is just the biggest thing that Hoosiers are talking about. 400,000 Hoosiers are, on the Affordable Care Act. HIP 2.0 is, being utilized by so many families. So that's the biggest thing. People are concerned because, they have these, pre-existing conditions, and they feel as if they're being threatened, whether or not they're going to still be covered. Everything from, getting albuterol for their kids that have asthma, because it seems like these days everybody's got asthma.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people that have it, diabetes and things like that. So I was surprised. That's one of the top things.
You hear that everywhere you go.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference where you're at.
So what's your background? You're before you decided you were going to be a congresswoman or a congresswoman waiting. What's your experience been and your qualifications? What prepared you for now?
Well, I've been a newspaper reporter for 30 years. I've worked with Gannett and the Star Press for about 15, and then for the last 15, I have done some correspondent writing, but I'm also the owner of the Good News, which took over the Muncie Times coverage area. I'd worked for the Muncie Times for a while. That person passed away, and so then we came in, we renamed the newspaper and still kept the same coverage. But then because I am a person of faith, I decided to kind of put a little bend on the good news, which is the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so I call it the good news, but also every single story that we write has to have a solution at the end. You're not just going to write, there's terrible, what do you call it, opioid crisis in the 6th district, or in this case in Muncie. Yes, there is, but what are we doing about it? What groups are pitching in? Who's trying to help? Who's got, we're the warriors in this situation, and how can we present that in a way that just doesn't leave people with just bad news? So I did that for a while, and then also was one of the fun things that I did after I came off for 15 years at the Star Press. Since I had my own time, I also ran a ice cream shop for 11 seasons, and so I've kind of done that simultaneously with the Good News.
All right. So I almost crossed your campaign in May. My day job is in Muncie as well. And I was coming down Walnut Street, and I saw your car parked outside of the caffeinery.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, man, I almost stopped, and I didn't. And I got back to my desk at work about 5 minutes away, and I started to see on Facebook that you had run across this guy that looked like Santa Claus.
That was the same day?
That was that moment, yeah. I just
You
drove
could have
by.
ruined it all.
Oh, my
Jeremiah.
God.
I saw
So
it,
what if
and
you had been there first?
Butterfly effect. You could have just changed the whole
I could have
scope.
changed everything and ruined the entire campaign. But yeah, I literally drove by and saw your car there. And went, I'm like coming back to work. I'm just going to keep on going.
Because you would have been welcome to meet David Letterman.
I know.
That would have been so cool,
I would have had
though.
so much fun nerding out about the Indy 500 with him.
Oh, my gosh. And he will talk about that for a long time.
So you
And I don't know anything about cars, so
serendipitously, Dave is in town in Muncie. He's a Ball State alum,
right.
And you're at the caffeinery. You had a campaign meeting, which is the caffeinery is like the local coffee shop. It's
right.
like, it's a Starbucks, but it's local, and it's not corporate.
Yeah, we like that.
Yeah, exactly. We agree. And our town here had a Starbucks, and now it's a pharmacy because the locals put it out of business. It's weird how that worked. Yeah. The market said, no, we don't need one of those. We'll just have
go to the pharmacy more than you get coffee.
Yeah. So, but you crossed paths and you met Dave, and you had been like wanting to find a way to connect with him.
Yes, I had. In fact, a couple of days before on that Sunday, I was telling my husband, I said, you know what, we've done really well. We've been to all these different counties. We had kind of run out of money though, so I didn't really. There was 3 or 4 counties that I hadn't been able to get to down south, and so I told him, I said, you know what, I need a spark in this campaign. And I said, wouldn't it be kind of cool? Because I'm thinking, who could I meet that's from this area that could kind of, maybe some people that I actually know. Like I can't call, I don't know. I just thought that was my short list, and I actually said David Letterman, and so true stories, we kind of prayed about it. We in the apostolic faith, or we kind of do this thing where we touch and agree. So we touched and agreed with hands and prayer, and we just said, whatever's going to happen is going to be good for this, for this campaign, and we think, that's what we prayed for. So the next day on Facebook, I think maybe the next day or Monday or Tuesday that week, one of my friends, I had seen that he had changed his profile to Dave Letterman, lit a picture with him and Dave Letterman. So I was like typing him, and I was like, "Hey, David, Daniel Wycliffe." I said, "Are you friends with Dave Letterman? Because I was just praying last night that I'd meet him." And da da da. He's like, "No." He's like, I met him like at a trade show in Chicago. Like I don't know him. He's like, I just sometimes put that picture up. And I thought, I said, okay, well, thanks. And so I appreciate that. And that was kind of it. And then the next day I'm just sitting in, I was on my way to the caffeinery, and I was feeling all like weird because my campaign debit card, I was trying to get gas because we live out in the country. And it declined. I was like, God, we don't have $20 in the campaign coffers. This is terrible. And so I called my husband. I was like, Erin, I don't have any gas, and I think I'm going to run out of gas, and I have this meeting at the caffeinery. He's like, well, come to my office and you can get some gas money, and we'll just take it from there. And I was kind of down in my spirit, and I was like, Erin, I don't have. I was like, they're already there. I was like, I'm just going to try and go with fumes and just pray that I get there.
Oh my gosh!
So no shame in that game,
right? Hey, I was the truth. I'm like,
we've all been there.
And he had already loaned me like the campaign like $3,000 or $4,000. So he was like, we're done with that. Our kids had to go to school next year, so he was kind of done with that. But he was going to give me $20. But as it were, I'm so glad I pressed my way, because as soon as I sat down with the campaign, and to the left walks Dave, and I just remember thinking that cannot be David Letterman. Like, how does that happen? And it was definitely surreal. But then I was like, I think that's him.
Did you sit there and go, man, do I want to talk to him?
Yes.
Talk to him? Sit there, just trying to decide.
I went through the whole thing.
Yeah.
I went verbally,
Yeah.
silently. But then when this guy on my campaign, he's kind of like the one that, the sober one, the one that says, we are not going to do this, or we are going to do this, and this is the reason why. So he's our sober person. So he was like, Jeannine, I think that's Dave Letterman. So I was like, you think this is Dave Letterman? I was like, if you think it's Dave Letterman, it might be him, right? So I did, and I went over there and introduced myself, and he was so gracious, and he has become a friend and just a supporter of our campaign since then.
And he handed you a fistful of 50s.
20s actually, and it was weird because it ended up being like it's on my federal election commission thing now. It was like $11.60. And then it was like 58 $20 bills. So the campaign was like on 5.8, and then the general is the primary was on 5.8, and then the general is on 1.16. So I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite scripture. One of my favorite scriptures, Romans 1.16, which is, I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So it was like all numbers.
That's awesome.
It all lined up for you. And the relationships continue, because you just had a big fundraiser a couple weeks ago.
I did.
Up in Muncie at your home, I guess?
Yes.
With him.
Yes, I did. I'm so thankful for him, because we were able to get a lot of media coverage out of that, and our planning. We're able to plan our next, the last couple of weeks of our campaign, in terms of getting our name out there on billboards and more signs, and hopefully some TV. We're believing we have a couple of commercials that are already made, and so we may try to get another one in.
Well, I'm going to make a deal with you.
Okay.
Every March I go to Washington, and I visit our congressional delegation on behalf of Purdue University and the Ag College.
Awesome.
So I will come visit you.
Okay.
In March, And then if you could bring Dave back here at some point when you come back home, we'll have him on the show. We'll have you guys on together.
Well, okay, I'll ask him.
We'll talk IndyCar.
Could you
Did you hear that? Did you hear it?
That was a firm. I don't think so.
Well, I tell you what, it's funny.
You're going to have this congressional pin, though. They'll do what you say.
He said he's going to come back on November the 6th, and possibly that's what he told me. And then I just learned today that he told somebody else on my campaign that he wants to come back on November the 6th and help possibly just
stand
maybe
outside
canvas.
of the precinct.
He can come to our
Great
election
people
party.
as they're coming in to vote.
Right. I want him to come canvassing with me. How fun would that
Awesome.
be?
Oh my god.
That would be awesome. All right, so before we get into your platform and start asking you questions on that, you are on the show now.
Okay.
And next Thursday, we have Tom Ferkinhoff coming, who's the
Right.
Libertarian candidate. We cannot get Greg Pence to come on this show.
Wait.
And I hear that that's a sort of a recurring theme because we also invited him to a debate here at our studio. I mean, the invitation's still open. He can come whenever he wants.
Who's
But,
this that we're talking about?
this is Greg Pence, the vice president's brother.
Somebody running against her?
Yeah.
Never heard of her.
Never heard of her.
He doesn't know me. He said recently the North Vernon plain dealer.
I love North Vernon, by the way.
it's
That's a fun town.
Fantastic. They're so nice there too. I went to the Republican. What do you call it? The Republican office, because I always try to visit, different places as much as I can because I believe I'm going to win possibly, and so I want to shake hands and get
You're
to know
gonna represent
everybody.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I am. So we got to figure out a way to be the United States of America.
There we go.
And not necessarily what we have been, which is our own corners, and we're right here and right there. So, anyways, I've been down there. So, yeah.
I mean, I know that I read your reaction to that, and I can understand that because I've had those similar type things, and I've always just come to terms with that's how you know you're making an impact.
That's when,
is,
Right.
when they come
Mayor
out
York
like
says,
that.
"Who the hell is Erin Dickon?"
No, actually, true story. As I was running for election, is when a group of us decided that to paint some crosswalks on 15th Street to tie in the cultural theme. And I'd gotten on a nameless website to read comments, and I searched my name from time to time. And I had seen somebody didn't like the idea.
Every other day, every other hour. That's all right. Aaron, I do too.
Monthly.
Like everybody at this table doesn't have a Google alert set up to their name.
I do not because the world, there's too many Dakota Davises in the world.
yeah.
I don't even show up whenever you Google me.
Oh man,
Nice.
It's sometimes hard for me to tag myself on my own page.
really? Oh my gosh.
There's another Dakota Davis in this town that works at Wendy's that I'm not Facebook friends with, but it tries to get me to tag that guy all the time.
Oh
Yep.
wow.
Well, anyway, somebody didn't like the idea. They said it was the idea of some elitists in town, and one of them's running for council, and they wish they'd paint his cue ball head. And I thought, you know what? I'm here. I've arrived.
Your water out
That's
there,
good. That's
Jeremiah.
good. Gosh, I'm proud of that. That's mostly delivery.
His cue ball.
So, anyway,
was
but
nice.
that's all to say. You're making an
Oh.
impact and you're making waves, and that's what this is all about.
Well, you don't have a cute ball head. He's not very nice.
I don't know. I mean, my tolerance is catching up with my hairline. I've said that.
But have you heard anything from the voters about how he's just kind of not doing anything? Like,
Well, yeah. The thing is that even though we've Tom and I both have extended, opportunities that we hope he would take advantage of in terms of debating both of us at different times. We've called, texted, communicated through email, snail mail. We've been rejected on every communicative front by Greg Pence. He doesn't even he never even actually acknowledged us, at least our campaign, that we even existed, which I think was kind of unchristian-like and unfriendly. And so, I just kind of, he refuses to do it. But the part that I think is terrible is that he also refuses to engage with the voters. I'm not so much upset for me because I'm one person. But why doesn't he go to bipartisan events? Why isn't he at these things where people can come and talk to him? Because certainly, I do, Tom does, the other primary candidates did,
Right.
And it's not always easy.
I've been around this district a long time, and it's produced some big names in American politics, right? I mean, David McIntosh ran for
much
governor
so.
of Indiana. He was in the House leadership. Now he's running the Federalist Society. So he was from Muncie. He was replaced by Mike Pence,
Right.
and Mike Pence became obviously the governor and the vice president. But he spent a decade doing this, and then Luke Messer obviously was raised, came all the way up to be number 3 in the House. all of them did debates.
Yes.
At least their first time, right? I sat in the audience when Mike Pence debated Bob Brock and Mr. Frazier, the third party candidate. At Ball State University in 2000. Okay, they had a three-way race, and they all sat in the TV studio in Muncie, and they debated. I was in Muncie at Ball State University, and Brad Bookout from Muncie,
Right.
Luke Messer, and Rex Bell debated for the 6th congressional district seat in person at Ball State University.
Wow.
First time, and they did it. So they've all agreed to these debates in the past, and now the fact that people aren't having the conversation in person in front of the voters. It's really a shame, and it seems to be the strategy that a lot of Republicans are taking. To be honest,
I know.
You've seen it right now. Secretary of State Connie Lawson is running. Mark Rutherford and
Don't look at me
Jim
like
Harper.
that.
It's Jim Harper. Jim Harper have agreed with the Indiana Debate Commission to do a debate, and they can't get Connie Lawson to show up.
I know. I tweeted about it today.
Last week we had an empty chair because one of the county council candidates in our candidate series wouldn't show up.
Wow.
They're one of the Republican incumbent commissioners in Delaware County didn't show up for the forums up there.
Yeah.
And it's very, very disappointing.
It is.
Tom Ferkinhoff's picking on me, saying that I was a political nerd in college. Jokes on you, Tom. I was still in high school. Okay, I've been doing this for a long time.
Right.
Yeah, but it is a big deal. I was just telling somebody today at the barbershop that, even if I wasn't the county chairman for the Libertarian Party here, I wouldn't vote for Greg Pence just based on principle. Mm-hmm. You've done nothing to work for my vote.
Right.
And then,
Right.
I just don't like that at all.
Well, there's another Ball State grad who was from Muncie with the same initials that I have, HAL. And he was on the other side in terms of being a Republican. And I had so much, I'm sorry, I just had a lot of admiration for Jonathan Lamb because he got out to all the 19 counties. He was at so many events that Tom
worked
and I
his
were.
butt off.
Right.
We had him on the show twice, and he put so much effort into his campaign. He really, really did.
And that's how you know that somebody really wants to, affect change and work for their constituency is when they put that kind of effort forth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
So
I wish that he had gotten the nomination. I really do. He certainly had the passion for that. And so, I don't know. I know he's a Republican. I'm a Democrat, but I still have a lot of admiration for him.
No, but this is. I'm going to go on my soapbox for just a half second or so.
That's okay. It's your show. I think you can do that.
Can we lower the lights just for the one?
Do you have any mood music, Dakota?
Can you get a little Barry White in here? Maybe that would do it.
We get into the tribalism of you're a Democrat and you're a Democrat and you're a Libertarian and we'll pretend like you're a Republican. We need a token Republican, so we're gonna have an audience or the audience member out here is gonna be our token Republican. So Lori Morgan. Which I loved all of your albums, by the way, Lori. They were wonderful.
I know. She's still such a great singer. I tell you what, she does. She keeps us alive on the campaign trail.
Anyway, we get this tribalism, and we worry that you're a Democrat, so I can't vote for you. I vote for independents. I vote for Democrats. I vote for Republicans. It's got to be about individuals more than it's just, that's the person in my party, so that's who I'm going to vote for. And I hope that that's the message you're preaching as well. And it sounds like it is because you're calling on the Jennings County Republican Party, right?
Right. I mean, I just believe we do have to let cooler heads prevail. And I am grateful that my faith background does teach me, to have some, I believe some morals and respect for other people, despite the fact that we might do things differently, and we do have different, sometimes very different ways of coming at things. But I just think that people, like I said, people are at the top of the show. People are tired of the rhetoric. They want people to come with smart solutions.
Real people,
right?
Yeah.
Real people,
not just an empty chair with a name.
No, and I think that they don't want that. And truth be told, I think it's going to resound very deep, very, very loudly.
It should.
On November the 6th.
It really, really should. All right, so going a little bit on that theme, whenever I was writing show notes for today, I went to your website and just pulled off pieces of your platform. I think that I pulled off like the top 4, I think. And number 1, first thing, as soon as you click on the issues button on your website is principled leadership, talking about transparency in government. And so I guess that, like we said, it's been a big issue from your race down to our Henry County Council. So how do you plan on being more transparent than what your opponents would be?
Well, one of the things that I've done already is I have these straight talks, kind of in voter engagement events. We've had several across the counties. We try to get them centrally located in 2 or 3 areas, where 2 or 3 counties can come, so people know, who they're voting for, what they can ask me questions up front. I believe that the transparency will be, in that, and it won't stop. If when I'm elected, it'll be where you can call me at our offices. The other day, I went to Luke Messer's office. We went 2 different times, and they have the door locked. I mean, nobody came the first time. The second time they came, and it was they buzzed you in, and you had to talk to a secretary. He was nowhere to be found, and he's getting paid still to be our representative. And through the end of the year, he's still our representative, and we have not been able to even reach him, much less be transparent, because we don't know what he's doing.
Right, and
he's not seeming like he's busy right now.
How do you view the way the House of Representatives is being run right now? I sent there's a Facebook series called The Swamp, which has been Facebook going through and covering a handful of different congressional, they're members of the House now, and they're saying, we don't have regular order, we don't have process, a bill doesn't get amended on the floor. Basically, the leadership of whatever party's in charge, whether it's the Democrat Party or the Republican Party, they come in and they say, here's the bill, you're going to pass it, you're going to do it, and you're going to agree, or else we're going to just cut you off at the knees. Right. I assume that's not, if you get elected, that's not your plan.
No, that's not my plan. One of the things that it used to be where before it got voted on, there were committees, and then before the committees there were discussions and things like that. The bad thing is that from what I've heard, talking to a couple of current members of Congress, that's not even being done. Right. And where are we at when we can't sit down and hash things out? When the only time we're bringing it to the table is when it's already been decided. That's not democracy in action, and it's disappointing. I'm very disappointed in the Congress and the current leadership in D.C. and it's certainly not putting people first. Right. It's putting them first, and that's why I agree. That's why I actually am a proponent of term limits.
We're gonna play a game, and this isn't on the quiz. This is you've not been prepped for this.
All right, good. I like games.
We did this. We kind of did this last week in the candidate survey, though, in the candidate group. Can you pick me a member of each party that's in the House that you look up to or that you like, a Democrat and a Republican that are in there that you're like, yeah, that person is that's a role model or somebody you think you could connect with, and why?
I have mine.
Can I hear yours first, Dakota?
No cheating.
Okay, well,
or somebody you look up to.
Right.
Somebody like that person. I connect with them.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to say, because we just lost the one that I looked up to probably more than anybody on both sides, and that's John McCain. He was a person, and I do believe he was a maverick. I think he was a person that constantly put people before party. And he caught hell for it, a lot over the years. And besides being a decorated, veteran and POW, and he did win, and he wasn't the way that he was sometimes maligned by the current out of the Oval Office was somewhat degrading, and I thought it was terrible and an attack that was unnecessary. So I've always been a McCain fan. So he's certainly one of the ones on the Republican side. In terms of the Democratic side, I think there's some those that I think are doing a wonderful job. I don't necessarily want to pick one because I believe I might be able to. I'll see him in 3 or 4 months. So I don't want to say that, but the ones certainly that can. That won't be a rubber stamp to anybody. So I guess the ones that I admire are the ones like Susan Collins, that in the past has been her own person. Olympia
Snow.
Yes, yeah. Another one. I think those are people that Joe Donnelly is. He's very. I admire him a lot. People have been sometimes they call me Joe Donnelly in a dress, and that's not. Or Joe Donnelly in a dress. That's not necessarily
Senator Donnelly.
That's not necessarily the worst thing I could be called, I guess. I'm
going to have to see you behind the wheel of his RV to know.
Yeah, here we go. Here we go.
He came to Henry County, before maybe after the primary.
Yeah, he was in one of the senior homes, I think, right?
Yeah, that was great.
So, all right. So so transparency is a big deal, and you're not happy with the way things are. Dakota, what do you got next?
I got civil rights and civil liberties. That was on your website as well. So I guess
in the chat real quick before you get going, Danny Morrill, my brother, says, Erin, please put on a hat. We're getting a bad reflection. So
it's just the cue ball, Danny.
It's
just the cue ball.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
paint his cue ball
back
head.
to Dakota.
It's a power move.
Oh, man.
All right, so you had civil rights and civil liberties. Obviously, as libertarians, we're very big on equal rights, but I'm curious on where you think there are shortcomings in current American society, and how you would plan on fixing those, or if you think that legislation can fix those.
Well, yes, I do think legislation can fix those. I think it was Martin Luther King said that he can't legislate your heart, but he can put legislation where you can you have to treat him as the next guy. It was much better and more eloquent than that. I can't remember the phrase.
I got you.
Okay, so there are things that the government can do and should do to protect its citizens. I believe that there's room for more attention to given to civil rights for everyone, and I believe that again, when you have people attacking those who are engaging in their right to free expression and right to protest in a peaceful and nonviolent manner. That's a concern, and I'll bring it up. It's with regards to the. Although I stand for the flag, and my son, he played for IU last year, number 48, he would never think of not standing for the flag. But we're a divided household on that. We had a couple of people in my family that were all in for. We all want to be mindful of police brutality, but maybe I would write an op-ed piece, but then someone else in my family, definitely supported the NFL players that had wanted to express their right not to stand. Those kind of things. When you have people attacking, people for constitutional rights, that's not civil rights, and that's not equality for all. I've gone to places. I just recently went to Madison, Indiana, where they had a KKK rally down there. I don't necessarily agree with the message. I didn't necessarily agree with the white sheets. That was a little scary, but you know what? I appreciate the fact that they were able to peacefully protest, and they were protected by the government, by our police and our law enforcement officers. Something's wrong when we want to cherry pick what's okay, because it doesn't feel right to us.
I find myself as the libertarian and the guy that's in the minority politically on this stuff. I sometimes you find yourself in the race to the bottom to defend the most ridiculous statements because somebody can make them. And it's not that I agree. I live,
Right.
I live the most conservative life possible. But man, I advocate for some wild crap, right? Like, we advocate for a whole lot more than we actually do because it's as long as you're not hurting somebody else,
Right.
you do you do what you want to do,
Right.
It's the force of government doesn't have to get involved. If I don't like what Erin's doing, as long as Erin's not hurting somebody else. Erin can have recreational nukes, but when you launch them on your neighbors, right?
You go.
then we've got a problem because you're hurting somebody. You're committing force or fraud against somebody else.
Or forcing somebody to mow their 9-inch grass isn't necessarily hurting them, just their schedule.
But
right,
when you create,
It could be hurting their property.
and anytime you create
their property taxes go down.
anytime you create a law that requires the force of government to enforce it, though,
Right.
you end up putting your law enforcement people in harm's way. They're the ones, their butts are on the line to go deal with it.
Right.
So there better be a really legitimate reason to put the force of government in there, because at the end of the line, no matter what it is, if it's an ordinance over stupid grass mowing or cars parked in the road, somebody has to show up, and you're creating conflict.
Right.
And then it's 3 a.m. and they're out there,
That's actually a really great point. And I'm since I'm pro law enforcement, that's certainly something that is of concern. My sister-in-law, my husband, a couple of years before I met my husband, she broke the gender and the color barrier in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, as the first African American police officer there. So yeah, we don't. And then I have nephews and nieces. My brother right now has an application into the Ball State Police to become a police officer.
Chirp chirp.
Yeah, I had to throw that in a little bit. So that's those are things that they have to come to the aid of those, and protect those that are trying to engage in their civil rights. But another thing too is LGBTQIA plus rights. In the era that we're in, we want to make sure that everybody has a seat at the table, regardless of who you love. That should not matter. You should have every right as a taxpaying or a citizen, as an American citizen. I guess even if you don't pay taxes, we were all under the same Constitution, and we should all have those that are legally here. We should all have the opportunity to live and love and marry and have insurance the same as the next person.
Equal protection under the law, right?
Right.
No matter who you are.
No matter who you are.
All right. So what about so recently in Carmel, Indiana, we had somebody spray painted a swastika on a synagogue up there, and then all of a sudden, the governor, Holcomb, and it seemed like all kinds of legislators were talking about needing to introduce hate crimes legislation, which basically means that if you're instead of that person who got caught spray painting the swastika, instead of them getting charged with vandalism, they would suffer a greater penalty because of the underlying message of it. Do you think that that's a good idea, bad idea? Just kind of curious.
Well, I understand both sides of that argument. I really do. And I probably, I've heard people on both sides saying, well, why would that be, if it's, if they did it to a white guy, does it make a difference? But if it's intended for hate, or it's targeted specifically for a specific protected classification, then that's the reason why it was done, And so, yes, we were Indiana was one of 5 states only that we don't have a hate crime. Now that's a state house issue, so I wouldn't be voting on anything like that. But right. It is a concern, and I believe it's time. The Republicans, I believe they're looking at it, although they may not be. Because I know that this year they had an amendment at their part of their platform in June, did not include the recognition of
marriage. Well, basically, it was going to be striking marriages between a man and a woman only.
Right. And
that got voted down at their convention. Okay.
As it should have.
So
it's 2018.
No, it got.
No, they kept it.
They kept that.
Wait, they did.
Yeah. Taking that out is what got voted down. Yeah.
Their platform committee tried to fix it, but then the uber conservatives fixed that.
Yeah. What were you going to say first?
Well, I have my sister
Monica Boyer and her people. We'll name names. I'm not the guy that's creating polls out there like Canada A and Canada B. I'm not doing that crap. We'll say names.
Right. Well,
can you click no?
All of my children are foster to adopt, and my last 2 children are 18 and 20, and their sister has kind of been brought into our family, and so we adopted. We've known her for almost 20 years, and so we call her our sister because you know how Black people are. Just oh honey, you're my auntie now because you go to church with me and you've known me 20 years, so you're my auntie. So she's our sister, so she's all of our sisters. So she's like our
white people that do that too. I've adopted Dakota against his will. It's a hostage situation, but we're family.
Right, you can just hit him like you do everybody else.
From forced friendship to forced family. Nice.
That's nice.
My sister's marrying into the Davis family next year.
Oh wow, for real?
Well, a different Davis.
Different Davis.
For me, it's legal.
Dakota, if you're in danger, just rub your eye.
Right, blink twice, Dakota, if you need us to take you out of here. So yeah, she's my sister is gay, and so we have. I'm concerned for her. She lives.
The Pences have treatment for that.
Yes, that's what I've heard.
So we've heard, yeah. All right,
That's
so
dangerous.
Speaking of Pence, we're going to be talking about the current administration, and we're going to be talking about agriculture and the good old trade war. Yeah, and we're going to get into that. So first things first, do you support the tariffs that were put in place by President Trump?
Well, let me say this. Everything that Donald Trump says, there's a lot of people that just automatically may not want to accept it or agree with it or think it's a good idea. Well, but with this particular issue, what he's trying to do obviously is to increase better opportunities for trade and to stop unfair trade. We get that, but it didn't work, and it certainly is harmful for the 6th district that I'm going to be representing. Whether it's the farmers in Rush County, whose soybeans yielded $2 less a bushel this summer, or during harvest season, or the aluminum and steel tariffs that are hurting the steel tariffs that are hurting Cummins down in Bartholomew County in Columbus. It's just not good for us. In fact, when you have Tom Linebarger, who is the CEO down at Cummins, he's going and talking with the CEOs of different companies. He's talking with the Indiana Chamber. All these business leaders have gone and literally talked to the officials in the White House, those that are in D.C., and compelling them and asking them, almost begging them, please, stop this. It hasn't worked. And then, I think we got another 200 was it 200 billion the other day back on China.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't seem as if it's the yeoman's try, but it hasn't worked. It's going the wrong way.
So the Trade Expansion Act of 1962 is what gives the president authority to enact tariffs. It basically says that he can, by executive order, issue tariffs on a foreign nation for trade. And however, I was looking at Politico whenever I was writing these notes. Congress can actually still write legislation that could overturn the tariffs that were even made by executive order. So it's not. I guess what I'm saying is that it could happen where Congress, where you want to be, could overturn it. Of course, it would take very
bipartisanship for sure.
And
it would have to be basically veto proof, which means you have a super majority in the Congress to write the legislation. Is that something you would support?
Yes, I would definitely support that, and also because it would require some people that aren't in the running for the Rubber Spine Award, which is half of Congress right now. So we would have to have people that are bold and courageous and willing to write that legislation. I have a problem with all these executive orders. Everybody from Obama on, it's just become a way to me. Why isn't Congress? We need to be the ones that are, and I say we because I'm going to be there. But seriously, why so many executive orders? That's out of order.
Right. Well, and it's okay. Well, first, my second gripe about that, you already said that it's not the way it's supposed to work.
No.
My second gripe about it is that it creates intellectually lazy politicians.
There you go.
And it's
all about fundraising and being
exactly
the popular.
And getting sound bites back to your districts and quotes that you can put on direct mailers so that you can get more votes later, and making sure that your party doesn't fund PACs against you. Your own party would fund a PAC against you.
That doesn't happen, does it, Dakota?
It very well does. I mean, ask Thomas Massey.
I know it happens.
But
that's wink, wink.
Yeah, but. So we talked about the legislation that could happen to overturn the tariffs. So why would you be the best candidate for the farmers in the 6th district? Traditionally, farmers in rural areas they happen to be more Republican leaning. Mm-hmm. Why should they vote you instead of Greg Pence or Tom Ferkinhoff for that?
Well, one thing is that I have been out to these farmers, everybody from Rush County on down. Randolph County, Rush County, all the way down. My brain's not working to all the 19 counties we have.
Sorry,
There's
you don't
the Hancock.
You don't have to go all Howard
Hancock
Dean and list
Shelby.
them all with a big screen at the end. We believe you.
Okay, and they are concerned. You're right that traditionally Republicans, are backed by the farmers, but I think this year, they're angry. They're upset because I don't know if you all have any farmers in your family, but these are prideful people. They take, they're not getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
I know Cade Coger is super arrogant.
They are. I don't know him. Is that a long time listener?
Cade is one of our other co-hosts. We have Dakota and I do all the shows. Then we have some other rotators, and Cade's in there too. But this time of the year, he's in the field. We are like the number one tractor podcast in Indiana. Okay,
because
this
Cade
time of the
listens
year,
to it.
this time of the year, people are listening to this podcast a day or two later in the combine. Like that, you are.
Are you serious?
Oh well, yeah. This like no joke.
Hi, farmers.
There are a lot of farmers listening.
It's so much that after harvest you can see the download numbers
We'll,
drop off.
we'll take a dip.
Wow.
Until lawnmower and then planting season comes back.
Yeah.
So they take a lot of pride in what they do. They got this 12 billion after he caused the problem with the whole tariffs. Then our administration decided they're going to give a $12 billion welfare check, basically, which is what it is.
Yeah,
I mean, we can
they're
talk
bailing them out like the auto industry.
It's like you caused the problem, and you punch me in the face, and then you want to give me an ice pack.
Yeah, that's
well, thanks.
Listen,
because I need it.
Government is really good at busting you down, giving you crutches, and saying thank me. Right?
Exactly.
It's.
I mean, I got a problem with that, and that's why I think they can relate to that. And then one of the things too, I don't know if you all had seen this on my social media, but in Rush County years ago, my family was part of a group called the Beach Settlement, and that was a group of black former slaves that came up from the South. And in 1835, they established a group, an area in Rush County right there by Carthage called the Beach Settlement, BECH, having to do with the beech trees that were on that side of town. Well, one of they were established, they had 70 families, they lived there for about 100 years or so. But the reason why they eventually left and that beach settlement went away was because of rising farming cost.
Really?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So that was at the turn of the century.
Have you visited Carthage?
I did. I went there, and when I say this, it was definitely one of the most emotional, areas. I went there. They had their. I missed the family reunion. We had another event that day, but I've been able to talk with some of the settlers there, and there's. It's kind of interesting that that history of African Americans farming right here in Rush County, right there in Rush County. And then just, seeing that, all those years ago, they had the same issues that you're seeing now in different ways. Farming is something that has been in my family for a long time. My grandpa raised also, he did hogs. And so when I would go to Greencastle in Putnam County, I would have to get up in the morning and do the hogs. And that was always one thing I did not like about the vacation in the summertime. Then, of course, it always smelled like hogs.
I will say that the ag community and like Farm Bureau, I think this year is the first time in a long time that they've not automatically endorsed Republican candidates.
Right.
Joe Donnelly, they kind of, the ag community very much likes Joe Donnelly and the work he's done at that level. In Chase Kitchen is, I think, one of his legislative directors, and he's a Purdue ag guy.
Okay.
They've been very receptive to some of the Democratic messaging this year, which has not been the case in the past. So
Right.
you may have more opportunities with the ag community than you would have expected coming
Politics
into this cycle.
has gotten weird. It's gotten really weird this election cycle.
And also, I think that they may be willing to wait. Even they may not be willing to trade sides. This year, but let things continue. And we start there's a rapper that talks about you mess with my paper. We got some issues, dude. Like I got to feed my family. So you mess with their paper for too long, they're going to change that vote.
All right. Speaking of paper, lots of it. There's a tuition-free college. That was one of the planks of your platform. My biggest question with tuition-free college, besides how you're going to fund it, is do you support? So the House Democrats earlier, I think in July, proposed a piece of legislation. It's called the Aim Higher Act, which is supposed to be providing incentives to states to give them to basically requires states to guarantee free 2 years of community college. Okay. And then, of course, whenever Bernie Sanders ran in 2016, he had the College for All Act that he was going to propose, which was basically any state institution for 4 years you can go versus community college for 2 years. Which one of those do you like more, and why? Sell me on it.
Okay. Well, before we get to that, let me just talk about something else really fast, because before I forget it. But I'm also the part of this kind of, I guess, the way to encourage people to education is 0% interest loans, 0% interest on their school loans. Because right now, even though you may have a lower rate, on those school loans, it's still collecting, and by the time you get out, there's so many people that have a mountain load of debt, or just debt that they, in my opinion, that they really shouldn't have to incur to try to dream bigger and have a better life for themselves. I'll just tell this really quick, and then I will answer that question. But between my husband and I, we went to we did graduate school and an undergraduate, both at Ball State. We didn't venture too far from our philosophy.
Yeah.
They say you should go different places for your graduate and undergraduate work. No, we didn't. We went there because it was cheaper. And still, with both of our school loans, we literally had almost as much as we did for our mortgage. And so he just paid his off. We were simultaneously working on both of those loans. I'm not sure how his got paid off before mine, but we did pay his off. And so now we're still working on mine. And that's with us also now. Our fourth child is getting ready to go into Purdue University or Ball State. We're not sure which one she's going to accept. But, my fear for her, my hope for her is as the last child, since everybody else has moved out, that we'll be able to help her and not have her have to have loans and things like that. Yeah. The idea that all this is tied into what your parents make, and what if you're not, what if you're not in good terms with your parents, and then it's just a lot. The traditional model of even getting to college, we need to look at how that is structured, in my opinion.
Well, and that's that's going on in our own community with Ivy Tech here, the Newcastle Career Center. That's a path I didn't go down.
Right.
And honestly, I probably didn't know all the options I had available at an immature 18 years old. But that's something we've talked about, paying on loans, and going to be paying on some child's loans here in the next 5 years. And yeah, I think those other avenues are huge.
Right. And we talk about, ways to pay for it. Now, when I get to Congress, hopefully I'll have, more research and, the actual numbers before me. So I'll have a more detailed plan. But, we put a man on the moon. We have the new super space program. What's it called?
The Space Force.
Space Force. Yeah. Like we need that.
I'm praying
really.
That one doesn't happen.
Yeah. That's ridiculous. Are you serious? We have money to start doing all that stuff again, but we don't have money to help our teachers have better salaries. We don't have money for kids to be able to go to community college for free. It seems to me that if we can reallocate some of the funding that we already had that's out there, and look at everything, everything's on the table. If you ask me, I'm sorry. So we had a budget today that was $900 billion.
So let's there's something that we haven't we'll say we haven't paid for in the last 20 years. 9/11 was 2001. Mm-hmm. It's 2018, so it's been 17 years.
Wow.
And they're still working on the congressional authorization from Al Qaeda.
Right.
That's not been paid for. We've just continued to borrow money to pay for that activity. Is that a place where we could cut back and some of the defense spending for the wars that weren't really declared and bring troops home? Is that the way you would view it, and then reapprove some of that for education?
Well, I would hope so. I think, when was the last time we declared a war? 1941. But
yeah,
yet we spent
World War II.
Right.
Billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars.
Billions and billions.
Why can't we quit going to war and quit being the world's police? Well, I'm sensitive to all that stuff, but
Team USA, World Police.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to get that. We need to quit doing that. We can pay for college education.
Congress has just been derelict in that duty, right? I mean, at least my view. You guys are supposed to make war. The president is supposed to execute it, and he can do some emergency things.
Right.
It's another area that Congress is lazy in.
But it's not happening.
Don't get me started. I'm not going to have any friends when I get there, so I do want to have a few friends to go to.
We see the executive branch assume the role that the legislative branch, and I think that's probably any level of government, whether it's federal or maybe even city.
Listen, Jeannine, I don't care if you have friends. I want to see you in the Drain the Swamp videos later on in the year.
Well, hey,
sit next to Thomas Massey talking about.
I want to be there to help. Well, that's up to the voters to drain the swamp. I believe that, and I do think that's going to happen.
So
I think
drain the swamp by putting in another Pence.
Well, right now,
sense.
exactly.
Well, it's like Lucy Britton was up there and she said, you can drain the swamp this election or you can send an alligator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because the swamp thing's in there now.
Yeah.
So the counter challenge, and we heard this from Danya Lester when she was on.
Mm-hmm.
She just retired from Purdue University. The counter challenge to free tuition for all is, well, you got to have some skin in the game.
Right.
So the model for me, and it worked well. I went to Ivy Tech for my 2-year degree, and I had to pay something, right? I had like $3,000 a year paid my tuition costs. I had some scholarships, and I had some out of pocket, and I worked full time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a full time job where I worked for my bachelor's program, and my employer helped offset some of those costs. So I had some, the employer had some, and we had some scholarships, and that model worked for me. And I didn't leave with $40,000 or $50,000 in student debt.
Right.
And then you see things like what Purdue has done, where they've frozen tuition, and they've said, "Look, tuition's going to be what it is," and we've held down the inflation side. There's been a line of thinking that so many of these college costs have gone and skyrocketed up because we make money so cheap that we end up letting kids that are 18 years old make a decision to go $100,000 in debt to go become a teacher. To make a public school teacher, a third grade teacher in Newcastle, Indiana, makes $35,000 a year, but they borrow $100,000 to go to Ball State.
Right.
You've got this uncontrolled money supply where you're it's driving up the cost of the education, and then you come back to a job that can't pay for it.
Well, they do have those.
That's my fear.
Yeah, and they do have those exit programs now where they do give you the opportunity to learn what are you actually borrowing? Do you really need it? But I know, there's a lot of kids that get, my husband and I were ministers. He's, like I said, he's the assistant pastor. We've ministered to a lot of students at Ball State over the years, and some of them are on, they're from families they don't have that reliability to be able to go home. Well, I do think I'm always a proponent of stick skin in the game a little bit. I know that might differ a little bit from some of the Democrats, but my mom and dad taught us to work hard for what you got, and lift yourselves up as much as you can by your own bootstraps, and then someone else will help you. So I'm all for that, certainly.
That's what my grandma says: the Lord helps those who helps themselves.
Always. Yeah, I think that my grandma did the same. She said the same line, Erin. So I mean, I think those are things to look at and consider. But some of the kids that I know, because they don't have help, I don't know if it's just from the demographics or the strata that maybe I'm pulling from or that we see a lot. But some of those kids are, they have to still come to our church for food, to the food banks locally, because. And some of them are independent, even at 18 years old. Some of them are independent before they even leave high school, because their parents. And we haven't talked about this yet, but maybe some of their parents are, incarcerated at times. Sometimes they're on drugs. They're not able to take care of them. My own children, that's how they came to me. They're, they didn't have parents that were able to take care of them for many years, several years before we even adopted them. And so, everybody's not coming from the same point of view, but I do think this is that once you help yourself, and there will be opportunities to be succored and helped and to get scholarships and aid and things like that. But that's definitely a concern, because we, if you're thinking that you can go in as a freshman, and by the time you're done, you can just have $100,000 at your disposal, you have to be careful, because you are going to have to pay that money back.
Yeah. Yeah,
And then that goes into more spending when you get to be an adult, and you're spending more on credit cards, and then
you've set yourself up for failure where you're trying to dig out until you're 40
Right.
or older.
right, and you can't have any kids in the process because you can't afford them, but we always do.
So one last thing that I want to ask about on the policy side that came to me. No matter what office you run for in Henry County, I'm sure as you've visited people, this issue's come up, and you've had people ask you, and it's been this fight in our community for a few years, and that's been over wind energy. And so I guess I want to hear from you an energy policy, or if you have a view on what should be happening and what's the federal government's role in that, and specifically with wind, because it's been such a big deal with a lot of the 6th District communities.
Right. You all had something recently here in Henry County with regards to the wind.
Yes.
Was it passed or not passed?
There was a wind. There was a modification to a wind ordinance. So there's a possibility that wind could come into the community.
Just left open.
You got a spider right there.
Okay.
Dakota has fear of a spider.
I just wanted to let you know. It's
okay.
He wasn't eking or anything.
There
were no shrieks, although your voice might have gone up a little bit, Dakota. Hang on just a second.
I am not afraid to admit that I am horrified of spiders.
Okay, well,
I'll tell you some stories after off the air.
Well, whatever's clean and green, I'm for. I'm an advocate. I do believe in climate change. I think that's not pie in the sky. I don't know what libertarians stand on that, but I believe that we have to be responsible. God gave us this beautiful earth to live in, and to grow and prosper here. And if we don't take care of it, and in a way that is beneficial to not only our generation but to future generations, I don't think we're given the service and the gratitude that we should. I'm concerned about the idea that it seems as if more kids. I don't have a number of the number of kids in Indiana that have asthma, but those things aren't just happening. I mean, it's important that our children, are able to breathe properly. The World Health Organization says across the world, 1 in 4 deaths are because of environmental or hazards, because of the environment. That should not be so. People shouldn't be dying because of poor water, whether or not you're in Flint or somewhere else, right. Which I think is what day 800 million that they've not had good water there. But those. I mean, I'm open to energy. I mean,
85 degrees on October 5th is not normal.
Seemed a little strange to me when it was almost 90. We almost wanted to put back up our pool. We had just taken it down like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, "Dude,
you could have had a private party at the Newcastle pool."
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The Newcastle. I don't know why Councilman Dickon let it close so early, but I think they closed the pool about July 4th this year.
It's open.
Unless you had a private party.
Yeah.
Okay. So
we allow open for private parties, but we close it to the public sooner. Than that.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I'll have to remember that. Maybe.
Yeah, we got to move on.
Okay.
I blame the city council personally.
I am really tired of all the couches on the street. The large trash has been a mess.
We have that in Muncie too.
Wish we'd come up with some sort of legislation.
I'm moving out of the city of Newcastle because Erin won't let me have hens. So I have to move.
For real?
Yeah, he won't let me have hens in my backyard.
You can't have chickens
so I have to leave.
City.
And I hope you go in with the gumption of this, into your freshman year, because one of the first things I had said was, I'd like to, kind of experiment and talk about chickens in town. And somebody said, if we talk about chickens at this table, I'm going to blow a gasket.
Somebody use
open-mindedness, gumption.
Yeah,
was it Mary?
We don't say Councilman A versus Councilman B. We don't play those silly games.
Tell me it was Rex. Just say it was Rex. Yeah. It was Jerry Walden, wasn't it?
No.
Okay.
So
it was
Vaughn Reed.
It was Vaughn Reed.
No, I'm just kidding.
Dang.
Wasn't Vaughn.
Oh, I'm sorry you didn't get to have that discussion.
Never mind. I'm not going to say anything. All right, we're done.
I need to be part of Henry. I need to be a fly on the wall in Henry County politics.
We have so much fun here.
Okay.
Yeah, we really do.
You guys know.
And it's got to be like this everywhere in a 6th district.
Oh yeah,
I would assume.
please. Oh yes, we're definitely.
And I think going back to you and your role, I think something that you've obviously proven that you can bring to the table is just being open and communicating with your constituents. And as a local elected official, I have leaned heavily communicating with not just our state elected officials, but Senator Donnelly's outreach person, Jorge Ortiz, has just been phenomenal at being in the loop and keeping everything, if we can have his assistance for anything. And I see you being a huge advocate for your communities. So.
Well, thank you very much. We're trying. Only 27 more days. 27 more days.
Oh, I'm counting.
What are you doing
I'm
here?
counting.
You got to be out knocking doors right now.
Like I said, this is our third event today. I've put in time. I can
Yeah.
just decide to have a little fun with the guys from Boss Hog. Speaking of which, can you guys tell me real quick how you got your name? I looked, but I don't know that I saw it.
You want the
online.
origin story? Yeah. So I've been a part of the Weird Libertarians Network for a long time. Chris Spangle is the director of the show, or of the network. And I said, I'm willing to start a show, right? I want to start a program. And he's like, all right, I'll give you a board, and I'll give you the microphones, I'll give you everything, but I get to name it. So Chris Spangle bestowed upon me the troll job of a name of us being the Boss Hog of Liberty, because obviously it's we're rural.
Okay, no. That's not why he named it that. He
there's
he
like
named
three
it that
parts to
because
this.
Jeremiah is very bossy.
I can be a little bossy at times, and we're in the libertarian movement, so I'm the boss of liberty or whatever. And then it got this catchy little. They didn't want to take the Boss Hog theme, but we got this stupid intro music thing.
That's the one thing I was just going to mention. That intro theme is, what do the kids say? It's fire.
I hate
that
it.
intro
I
theme.
hate
I
it so
love
much,
it.
Aaron.
So-
I only listened to that part, and then I shut it off.
When we first started, it was like we had this cartoon clip art junk of me in the Boss Hog suit. And I'm like, we are getting taken really seriously, and this has turned into like
we got taken seriously, and
Spangle
we
expected this to last like a week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
We
this is episode 81.
Showed him.
Were you guys
Yeah.
here for the very first show?
Yeah, every episode is Dakota.
What about
and I.
you, Erin? Did you?
This is number 3.
Oh, okay. So
No,
you
I guess I don't really.
So
count
you're
this
like
as-
Chick McGee when it comes to Bob and Tom.
Yeah.
we were
Just obscure enough. That's my goal.
invited. Jeremiah and I were invited.
I'm Christy Lee today.
This past
We're gonna make you read some news stories.
Please don't.
But we were invited this past summer to speak at the Libertarian Party state convention and give a presentation. And we talked about our podcasts and political outreach and influence, blah, blah, blah. And someone asked us if we have ever been called racist because of our name.
Is it because it had to do with?
Because Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah, Dukes of Hazzard.
Hazzard. Yeah.
That's goofy.
No,
And we were like, not until just now.
Right? Should we be concerned about that?
Now we live in fear.
Well,
Episode 82 is going to be the first episode as the head pig of Liberty.
So then we had to change the cover art with our.
Oh my gosh! You know what's so really weird though, because I do have to say this is that one of the other things that has surprised me about running is I found myself being subject or around, that the Confederate flag, the red and blue flag.
You had a great post in Moreland.
yeah.
The Henry County Moreland Fair where
Right.
you visited a vendor.
Right. I saw the vendor there, and he's selling all these, the different paraphernalia, everything from handkerchiefs to like wallets and hats and flags and everything. And so, my whole thing is that I'm representing everybody, right? And so if I'm representing everybody, wouldn't that include, these guys? And I had never really, done this thing before. And so I decided I was going to go up there and talk to the guy. So I talked to the guy, and we just went up there and introduced myself. Within a few minutes, he's a great salesman, by the way. He sold me a stun gun, so I keep that in my car.
Nice.
I should have brought it. It's really cool.
Keep Aaron at bay.
Oh, he's my
That's
friend.
That's one way.
So he, he
one to the
sold
mayor.
me the thing, and then I never did say anything like on day one, but I went to that Moreland Fair like 4 times that week because it was huge, and
It is
someone told
unreal.
me that
it's like a tri-county fair. There's people from Muncie,
insane.
Randolph County, and Newcastle. They're from everywhere.
it's the Randolph or the Moreland Free Fair, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's a great fair. It's like a great midway and everything. So I every day I visited them and I always find something to go over there for. Like today, I need a lighter. I don't smoke, but I went over there and got a lighter like one day, and then so by the 4th day, he just told me. He said, Jeannine, he's like, I want you to know. He said, first of all, he was a Marine veteran. from Vietnam. And he said, I want you to know, he said, I don't mean anything by this flag. And I had never said anything to him the whole week. I just kind of just kept coming. So he probably thought, why is she doing this? But I just make, small talk with him. And he said, I want you to know, he said, I don't hate anybody. And he said, I'm not a racist. And he kind of got verklempt a little bit. And he was like, I just want you to know that. He's like, he said, last year a few years ago, I was selling Hannah Montana. He was like, I just sell
Also
whatever
divisive.
sells, right? For so many of the right reasons. Yeah. So so then I did a little bit of digging too on the history of that. You realize that there's actually 2 flags that belong to the South, and that's not actually the official one. So
the stars and bars is the battle flag, right?
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of funny, and it's kind of taught me. One, you never judge a book by its cover. I've learned that guy was, by the end of the week, he was telling me about all of his aches and bruises that he had from what he believes is Agent Orange contact. We were able to talk about the VA, the fact that, now instead of being able just to go to the VA for treatment, you have to make an appointment. Like, these older people are like suffering, and like, it doesn't make sense to me. They have to go down there and sit. Whose bright idea was that? Let them have an appointment so they can just go in and go out. That's it. So I heard, some of those things. And then I also heard too, someone was telling me recently about some of the history that was tied to the Confederacy and how they were proud of their heritage that related to some of the women that were spies during the war. Women who dressed like men. They weren't. I don't think they were pioneers in the LGBTQ community, but they did it because they wanted to be a part of the war.
Fight.
Yeah, and so their histories are amazing. Some of these women, like they were able to pass as men and fight in the war. I don't know how they did it, but so my thought process was expanded much more than what it had been, and I think when people really see that, now that I just think that we need to be open again. And I know maybe I'm more open than some, but I saw a different side, of that issue than I had seen before, and it's not as offensive as it was to me before.
That type of compassion that's going to unify the country right now, and if we're scared to approach something that is so foreign to us, it's just going to continue down this path.
Well, that's what pride and prejudice is built in. It's just fear,
right?
And, not the not knowing and things like that. But yeah,
fear leads to hate.
Yep, always.
So we are getting to that point in the show,
okay,
Erin, where we have to do our final thoughts.
I've prided myself on not getting up from this table, just FYI.
Yeah, I had to go for
translate that as you wish.
Yes. Well, if you wore the adult diapers, there's no shame.
Leg back.
Really hard
2 words, leg back.
Well, it just depends.
It depends. Bop.
Hey-oh. You got anything?
Is anybody out there for real?
Oh, there's tons of people watching. They're all laughing
That's a
too hard.
sponsorship right there. Game changer.
Listen, we will take their money.
You can get through the whole hour episode of the Boss Hog if you wear Depends. Brought to you by Johnson &
Depends.
Johnson.
Right there, you go.
What you got for us?
Thanks for having me on. It's always a privilege to be here with you guys, and I've tried to not add my commentary as much and leave the funny to guys like Danny and Chase, but just here to support Jeannine. She's be a huge, I guess I could say, a huge elected official for our district, and we need that type of compassionate leadership to move our country in a better direction. So best of luck, and anything that we can do to help you, let me know.
I appreciate that very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Jeremiah and Dakota, you guys are even funnier in real life.
Because you can see them, right?
We're funny. We're funnier in real life, man. When you see us in person, it's ugly.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed myself.
Are we door knocking? You guys going door to door? You got teams out there? You need volunteers? How do people get connected with you and do the ground game?
Yes, they can. Go to my website again. There's a place to volunteer. Jeannine Lee Lake for Congress.com. That's JeannineLeelake for FORCONGRESS.com.
I'll just drop a link in the comments here.
There you go.
We will end up tagging your campaign on
Awesome
Facebook
sauce.
side and most of the other things too. So we'll take good care of you on that side.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, so we're looking for always donations, always people to take a sign. That kind of stuff is free, but most importantly, just vote. If you can connect with our campaign. I'm excited because I do believe that there is a new horizon of leaders going to Congress. And one of the things I say is that if you get me in, hold me accountable. Make sure that I'm doing the things that I said. We have a bucket list we have a couple, bills and legislation pieces that we're working on now, so we can present them, as soon as we get there. So yeah, I'm excited to be here, and I'm still excited to run. I've got 27 more days. We're doing right now, getting ready to engage in our 19 counties for 19 days. We've kind of been starting that already unofficially. So we're going to end it strong. We've got our second win. And so, yeah, I'll see Tom a few times too. He's my favorite libertarian.
Whoa.
Wait, I mean, besides you guys, he's my
I think
favorite.
she had that written down.
He's my favorite congressional D6 libertarian.
There we go.
Well, I think that hard work's noticed, and I know it's not just you; it's your family, and you and Tom are putting in the effort,
Right.
Especially in relatively speaking of what's his name. But I think that people are noticing that.
I'm looking forward to your first bill because Pence has not passed a bill through Congress yet.
That's what I heard. 12 years, but I didn't say that.
No, we'll do it for you. It's fine. If they
Save
would
it for the debate.
Listen, if they would return a phone
Right.
call, it wouldn't be like this. Okay. Actually, I've had good phone calls. That's the funny. I've talked to them on the phone multiple times. We know exactly who you are. We'll come. We'll do the show.
Maybe
Once
you
we
get a
to the-
representative here, and
Right.
every answer is, "Well, Greg says." Well, Greg thinks.
I meet a lot of people. I have yet to cross paths with them because I haven't been at
Should
a
have
Republican.
gone to the. I was
I
going
haven't
to
been at a
say.
Republican fundraiser.
Do you have
Yeah,
$25,000 sitting around in college?
Not quite. Not quite.
Okay.
Especially not for a Republican.
All right.
All right, Dakota, what do you got for us?
All right, of course, I want to thank everybody who supports the show. If you support us on Patreon, if these I am wearing today, Jeremiah and I traded because they got too hot for him. But
They were
these
too
are
toasty.
I like them a lot. They're the Craig DaCosta headphones. Craig DaCosta bought these off of our Amazon wish list for us. So you can go to Amazon.com, search Boss Hog of Liberty, and you will see our logo pop up, and there's a wish list for us. It has all kinds of good things. So if you don't want to support us on Patreon, then you can hop on over there and buy some cool stuff that we need. And I'm going to have to add a headphone amp because the buzzing's driving me nuts.
And somebody making
not
$15
that
an
bad.
hour will fill your order, right?
That's right.
Somebody making $15 an hour that wasn't forced to do that by the government. The market just said, you know what? That's what we're going to pay.
Somebody making $15 an hour that used to make $14.50 but now has their bonus taken away, as well as their stock options.
I love all this libertarian talk here at the end.
Final thoughts. What a great time to bring that in there.
Yeah.
We can
Look,
do a
we're
lot of
going
things
to pay you
voluntarily.
more on the hour, but we're taking away other money.
All right.
Just like the guy.
We
All
wanna
right,
thank-
and of course, this show is brought to you by Big Bounce Inflatables of Newcastle, Indiana. Once again, great company, a lot of fun. I can remember going there whenever I was a little
5 years ago.
No, not 5 years ago, probably 6 or 7.
No, okay.
I might have been too old then.
Who
but
doesn't
anyway,
like a good bouncy house?
Yeah.
though? I mean, something's wrong with
Hey.
you.
over 200 different inflatables. So just go over to bigbounceFun.com, or you can call 765-325-JUMP.
All right. Real quick for me, I'm going to plug. We're doing door to door, and I could use some volunteer help. So we've got some Facebook events out there for the Jeremiah Moral Campaign group. Hit me up. We'll do some door to door knocking, and then there's a big open house. We're going to let the public in. You're going to get to see. Aaron got it. He has killed.
I'm
the
leaving
spider.
it there for you,
Okay,
Dakota.
Dakota.
He's a
Leaving it
murderer.
there. Just like being at home. Sorry.
Yeah, he's not. He's the spider killer. He won't clean it up. We've got the big open house. So if you guys are around the area and you want to see what the studio looks like, and you want to see the new Libertarian Party headquarters, Saturday night there's an open house. I think it was from 4 to 7. You'll hear some candidates speaking in here about 5:30 or so. So the general public finally gets to see. It's your chance to see the studio and check it out. So come on out.
And the Jeremiah campaign desperately needs walkers. I won't be there.
Yeah,
I won't be
you're-
there Saturday because
you're
I'm
moving.
moving. So someone at least has to come take my spot.
There you go.
Well, the people with
Aaron?
the walk, like a rollator, a walker.
No.
You got what's the
You
age
gotta
of people
come,
walking for you?
Door to door, man. We're canvassing.
Yeah, you want to come?
Yeah.
You can come.
When is it?
Yeah, it's
I'm busy.
Saturday and
I'm
Sunday,
busy.
man.
I think I got some going on.
We got
You
an
gotta
app.
wash your hair.
No, again, somebody that's been working hard, and it's noticeable.
It's a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed talking to people, meeting people, and you go do the door-to-door thing. It's a grind, and you get tired and you get hot, and then you knock on a house and you meet somebody, and they say, "Man, I'm really glad you talked because I didn't realize what was going on in these races," and that gives you the pickup to go for the next hour and a half, and you get yard sign placements, and you really connect with people.
And then sometimes you're walking down one side of the street, and somebody cleaning out their garage on the other side says, "Go away."
Yeah, you're like, I'm not bothering you.
Oh well.
Skipping that house.
I want to personally thank Jeannine for running and coming by, doing the show.
Thank you.
It means a lot that you're here and that you're talking to the voters and connecting with our audience. We've really tried to create a platform here that's open and equal to all, and we've been inclusive of everybody on the ballot and all the races we've talked to, and very appreciative that you've taken us up on that opportunity. There's a lot of times we've had people running for Congress where there's been nobody to interview against them on the ballot. I've thrown my name on the ballot as a candidate before just because I wanted voters to have choices, and no matter what happens in a race,
Right.
We need to make sure that people are actually applying for the job, and you don't just got an automatic reelect.
Well, that means a lot to me. I appreciate it. You all have been very kind and open and sharing all your information as libertarians with me. And, I always like to have room to grow. Everybody needs to be under that umbrella and feel like they matter. So you're funny and smart.
We do our
and
best.
I want to come back. Can I invite myself back?
Of course, absolutely. We'll have you back.
All right.
We like return guests.
Next week, next week we will have 2 shows. Monday night, we're continuing the candidate series with Chad Malacote and Robin Reno Fleming. They are running for the Henry County Council District 2. So that's the Republican Democrat. There is no Libertarian in that race. And then Thursday night next week will be Tom Ferkinhoff, District 6 Libertarian candidate. And I guess we'll put Greg down as a TBA. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So I think that's it. I think that's all we have to cover. And
That's it.
What does TBA stand for?
To be announced.
Oh, okay. I thought it was something else. I'll just...
We could, in relation to that, we could probably come up with a lot of things.
You guys play the word game, and we'll figure it out next Monday. You guys, Jeremiah at bosshogofliberty.com. You guys tell us what you think TBA is, and we'll do the reading of the acronyms. We'll see y'all Monday.
Thank you for listening to the Boss Hog of Liberty, which is part of the We Are Libertarians Network. I am Chris Spangle, and I am the founder of this network, and I invite you to listen to all of our shows, which you can find at WeAreLibertarians.com or by searching for these in your podcatcher. The flagship show is the We Are Libertarians podcast, where we apply libertarian principles to current events. The Brian Nichols Show is a conversation amongst Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, as they talk about what is happening in the news. And we have many other podcasts like The Chris Spangle Show, Upward, The Cost, Raw Audio Politics, Miranda's World, and Tad Talk, which is quite a ride. So check all of these out. Go to WeAreLibertarians.com and you can check out all of our great podcasts. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Get our other shows at WeAreLibertarians.com.